Welcome back to the Iron Sights podcast. I'm here with Brad Jenson. He is from Key Nutrition out in Utah. Brad, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, man. Appreciate you having me on.
I know you've been into fitness basically your whole life, or the majority of it, but maybe talk about how it's impacted you and the challenges that you've had along the way and how you got to where you are now.
I was a chubby kid, and that's why I got into fitness so early. I think it's either kids that are rail thin, skinny, or chubby. Like
I was
kind of in the middle.
I was a chubby kid.
Yeah, man. I was teased. I was teased by my friends though. Like I need to make that clear because I had one person say, "Oh man, I was bullied really too. Almost want to commit suicide." And I was like, "Oh no, bullied's a strong term, but being the butt end of the joke with all my friends for sure. Like I hung out with the cool kids, but I was always the fat kid they made fun of, right? And they did it in a joking fashion, but it hurt my feelings, of course, right? And so I experimented with alcohol when I was 13 years old, and it was like taboo. We don't do that. I come from my parents didn't drink. We come from a very religious Christian family, and so I didn't. I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this. But of course, I'm 13. It's called peer pressure. And so I caved. And I remember when that alcohol hit me, I remember how bad it was. Jack Daniel's whiskey. And I remember thinking, why would adults drink this on purpose? Right. And about 20 minutes later, when it hit me, I was like, this is the best shit ever. So what happened? It allowed me to just, instead of my friends making fun of me, they were laughing with me instead of at me. I started imitating, not to date myself, but like Chris Farley, Van Down by the River and Saturday Night Live skit, the Matt Foley. And they were laughing. And I was like, oh, instead of making fun of me, they're laughing because I'm being funny. And that side could only come out when I would get drunk. And so we would do this here and there. We were kids, right? Whenever they could steal some from their parents. But then when I got into fitness, I started reading in these magazines how bad alcohol was for you. And I misinterpreted the information. How I read it was like, if you drink, you will lose all your muscle. As we know, alcohol is not advantageous for building muscle, but it's also, the way I read it was like fear mongering.
Right.
But it got me to stop. I quit altogether. Got really into fitness. I mean, it was my life. I'd go to school, couldn't wait to get off of school to go train back and buys or chest to try. I was all into it. I'd spend 3 hours there just talking to these older guys, picking their brain. I was obsessed, reading every magazine, got the encyclopedia of bodybuilding by Arnold. And I mean, I was all in. And in high school, beginning of my senior year, I was at a party and I always share this because I think there's these moments in our life where we look back and we remember so distinct. Like I can't remember shit about high school, but I remember this split level entry house, these shitty brown cupboards, like the red Solo cups everywhere because there was jungle juice and a kegger. It was a high school party, right? And I had a friend give me some opiate pain pills. And this is how naive I was at the time when he offered them to me. I said, oh, I'm not in any pain. I'm okay. And he said, no, man, they'll make you feel like you're fucking drunk, but you won't have a hangover. All the bodybuilders are doing them. That's all he had to say. Okay. All the bodybuilders are doing them. And I was like, which isn't true, obviously, but I was like, done. So
that's for me.
Them. Yeah. And I remember that house distinctly because when those hit me, I remember thinking I am in love. I was in love. I wanted to chase that feeling the rest of my life. I was on cloud 9. And, by this point I'm pretty jacked too, because I got really into fitness. I, wasn't getting teased anymore. In fact, I was like the popular kid. And I ran with that shit, man. I ran with it. I loved it. I didn't use normally from the get. I was, by the time I was graduating high school, I was taking trips down to Tijuana, Mexico, and from Salt Lake City. Just give your listeners some context. It's about a 14-hour drive.
Yeah, that's.
And I'm telling my parents I'm going camping with my buddy's parents, right? And I'm going down to Mexico and throwing on a sombrero and driving back through the border with all kinds of narcotics in my door panels. I would take the door panels off, shove them all in there. I'd drill it back on, drive through the border, and I kept doing this, and it was idiot savant. I didn't realize the amount of federal felonies I was committing by drug trafficking.
Yeah, this is next level shit, man. I mean, this is not messing around.
And honestly, there was some ignorance was bliss. I was like, what? You just go down there, it's legal to buy, and then you just kind of sneak it back. It's not that big of a deal. And I started using them every day, some Oxycontin and like hydrocodone and I started selling drugs. And that's kind of where my entrepreneurship began. Was I started selling to all these other high schools, all these other high school kids. And when I graduated high school, I realized now how serious what I was doing when a friend got caught down there doing the same thing I was, got caught, got put in a Mexican prison. It was all over the news.
Wow.
And I thought, okay, I'm done. Never going down there again. I started to realize what I was doing was risky, and then that solidified it. So, man, I was like, I'm done. I'm just going to stop. No big deal. And I had heard people talk about withdrawals, but I didn't know what that meant. Because I hadn't ran out. I'd been using them every day for 5-6 months. And the day came that I ran out, and I withdrawed really hard. By this point, I was already personal training because my parents told me I needed to go to school, go to college. And I remember looking at them and saying, why the fuck would I go to college? I literally despise school. Like, it's the worst thing ever. I hate it. And they said, well, you got to do something. So I got certified as a personal trainer through NASM when I was still in high school.
Okay.
So I got a job, personal training at Valley Total Fitness, which has gone out of business, as an 18-year-old kid. And these withdrawals hit, and I had to go to work. And I was like, this is not going to work for me. So I called a friend. That friend said, I don't have anything, but my brother's here. He's got some stuff. I came over. That stuff happened to be heroin. Wow. Now, let me tell you, if you would have hooked me up to a lie detector test 2 days before that and asked me, would you ever use heroin? I would have said no, and I would have passed with flying colors. That was dirty. Like, I couldn't go to that level. But when you're withdrawing or sick like this and you feel so awful, it's like the flu times 10 plus anxiety. I said no at first, and then I said yes. And it was a loaded heroin syringe. So I shot up heroin just after high school for the first time. And I'll never forget, that guy looked at me and said, sorry, kid, your life's never gonna be the same.
Wow. And
I remember the way he said it was like, you're fucked. And I remember thinking, oh man, I'm just going to do this one time. Not a big deal. I'm going to see what I just had to go to work. Well, it didn't happen one time. I kept using every day, and heroin was more accessible. It was cheaper. And I continued to be addicted to that. And by the time I was 20, I ended up in my first treatment center. And I went to that treatment center and thought, okay, heroin's my problem, but I'm going to do everything else. So I got out of rehab and proceeded to keep drinking and doing all the other drugs. And it led me right back to the same spot. I'm right back to the heroin eventually. And so just to sum up, basically from 2005, since I walked into my first treatment center, till my sobriety date, which is November 20th, 2012. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. That 7-year span was just filled with incomprehensible, like, demoralization. Just, I would go on these runs of 3 or 4 months, completely ruin my life. Then something would intervene. My parents would send me to detox. They'd send me to rehab. I started getting picked up and going to jail, which was actually a good thing for me. And I would get clean for 2, 3, 4 months, and I'd actually build back my life. I'd get, I would get back in the gym. I'd look good. I'd get another good job. And then the day would come where I think I could just use one time. And this pattern went on and on. I ended up going to 6 different inpatient treatment centers, countless detoxes, 17 trips to jail, bookings in the county jail, of which I did about 20 months total, like a couple months here. And lived in my car at one point, there's so many stories in there. 5 different overdoses, like, just nuts, the insanity. And keep in mind, this wasn't supposed to happen to a guy like me. I'm the youngest of 5 from a good Christian family. Like, this, it wasn't like I was using with people whose mom, smoked crack with them, and their dad was in prison. Like, I'm like, oh, my dad's like the local bishop, which is like a pastor, like, for the Mormon church. Like, wow. I was like raised good. No, I just believe today it was my test, because the reaction I had when I first took those pain pills was not normal. I loved them. The problem is my solution to my problem, which was me, became a bigger problem. And so just to fast forward and kind of, is towards the end in 2011, I finally went to jail for a full year. And they basically said, hey, we're sick of bringing you in, putting you back on probation. Then you screw up on probation. So we're giving you your time and you're done. You're scot-free. All your charges were done.
Wow.
So I did that whole year in jail. And when I got out, I really believed I was going to do better, but I wasn't actually changing in there.
You didn't have a plan. You didn't have a plan.
No, I was robbing people in there. We were getting in fights. I was gambling. Like, I was doing everything but use drugs, because in jail, drugs are not prevalent. In prison, they are, but
they're a little harder to get. Yep.
Yeah. So the behavior was the exact same. And I had no plan. I was just like, oh, I got this. I've never been clean this long. I'm good. And I got out, and within 2 days, man, I made the call, and I couldn't believe I was doing it. And it's crazy that like it is so hard to deploy empathy to addicts, because just like the evidence is so apparent, yet we do it anyway.
Right.
And I made the call, and they told me all this shit, man, like through rehab, like play the tape through, and I'm doing quotes, and I played the tape through, and the tape went like this. You're going to go pick up dope downtown. You're going to do it. Hopefully you don't die. And if you don't die, you're not going to stop till something stops you.
Mm-hmm.
Like before I could be like, oh, I'm just going to do it this one time. And I still went anyways, with tears rolling down my face. And needless to say, I picked up that day, and that was January 27th of 2012. And I didn't draw another sober breath until my sobriety date of November 20th. And so that was a long run for me of about 11 months, because see, my prior history was 3 or 4 months, something would intervene. And just before I got so bad, and this time my parents were done. They had helped me so much. I had robbed them. And once they knew I was using it again, they put up this beautiful thing called boundaries, and it saved my fucking life.
I was just about to ask you about that. Yeah. I mean, the wanting to help, but in reality, almost enabling.
Find me a really good addict or bad addict, however you want to view it. And I'll find you someone along the way that was a really good enabler, not because they were trying to be malicious, because they loved
you. Yeah.
My mom was going to love me to death, literally going to love me to the grave, because she kept bailing me out, giving me money, doing this. And they finally said, we're done. We love you, but until you're sober, like, don't contact us. And so I ended up homeless that whole year. And I never slept on the street because I was very resourceful, but I slept in some really, really shitty places, dope houses, trap houses, which is essentially just like an abandoned house. Lots of shitty motels, just staying wherever I could and hustling and was doing every drug under the sun, but for sure heroin, but got really into meth and completely lost my way. It was a dark year. I saw some gnarly shit that I don't wish upon anyone. And I'm so grateful my parents put in those boundaries. And it was because I found my bottom. Like, I hit a rock bottom that I didn't know existed. And, I was 170 pounds when I got sober. I'm 215 pounds. I was so underweight. Towards the end of that year, November, it was about, sometime the end of November, right before my sobriety date, my mother called me, informed me my grandpa died. And I share this story a lot because it was the turning point for me. And I tell people, sorry if you've heard it. It's the only story I got. I can't make it up any different. But she said, I want you to show up to your grandpa's funeral. And I was really sad that my grandpa died, because I was supposed to see him a couple of times that year and never showed up. And it was important to me. I had enough in me to be like, dude, just show up. And she said, do me one favor, Brad, please just be okay. And I knew what that meant. What that meant was, don't be so high that you're drooling on yourself, and don't be dope sick that you're throwing up on yourself.
Did you think you could do that at that time?
What?
Did you think you could fulfill her wish that time, or were you just
No. I was hoping to be on the front end, which was maybe a little too high, but not like totally incoherent. I knew that if I was withdrawing, because I was so physically addicted, that I would get violent withdrawals. It is ugly to watch. It looks like an exorcism is running through somebody that's like detoxing that hard. Wow. And of course that morning came, and I ran out of the drugs. I was sick. I was dope sick. She picked me up, and I really was like, dude, just channel the inner grit to somewhat function at this, get through this, come home, go get drugs. And I couldn't. In the car ride, I vomited all over her dashboard.
Wow.
And she's like, oh my, you can't go up like this. And I'm like, I know. And she said, what do we have to do? And I gave her a look, and she knew what it meant is, we got to go get drugs. And she said, you son of a bitch. She was so mad at me. My good little religious mother's taking me way out of the way to the dope house, to the dope man's house.
Jesus.
When we get there, just add insult to injury, I ask her for $20.
Wow.
So not only is she but she's buying me the drugs now, and she is so mad. And I get the drugs, and I come back out, and she says, you got to hop in the back seat. And she said, get in the back seat. We are late. We are going to be really late because we had to backtrack so much. So we start driving up the highway, and she said, just do whatever you have to do. And so I pull out the the whole kit you do. It's like the spoon and lighter and needle and just, it's this ugly thing. And the whole time her eyes are just staring at me in the rearview mirror. She's not even looking at the road. She's looking at me and tears are just streaming down her face. She's not sobbing and she's also not wiping them off. They're just, it was, if I could put a picture of what heartbreak looks like, that was it. And I kept looking down and I was trying to find a vein because they'd all collapsed and I'm looking and she's looking. See, my mom knew I did drugs, but my mom never watched me.
Yeah, she had no idea the extent of what that actually entailed.
What that looked like. Yeah. And she's watching her son literally kill himself. And I kept looking. I finally do it. I hit the vein. Everything instantly changes with drugs. It's the most, especially intravenous use. It's a really, instantly I felt better. Instantly. But normally under that state, I also am like, hey, everything's good. What's the matter? And I couldn't think it. In that moment, I looked and my mom is she's just sobbing, not even wiping her tears. And I looked up and I said, I'm sorry. And she didn't say anything. And we didn't talk the whole ride. And the thought came to me in the back seat, very clear. It said, you got two options, man. You either need to kill yourself. And I meant it. And I wasn't suicidal. And it was very strong. Kill yourself or finally get sober. Going on another day, being a homeless junkie was not an option. And I didn't even think I could get sober. So I was like, maybe I should just kill myself. And by the grace of God, I got back that night to the shitty motel I was at, and I said a weird prayer to a God. I didn't even know if it was a God out there. I was just like, dude, if there's something up there, help me. Help me. I get in a car with the kid. The kid asked me to drive because he's too high. Turns out the car was stolen. That's why he wanted me to drive. Immediately, I get pulled over. And when those lights went off, man, it was crazy. At first, my first reaction was like, I'm screwed. I'm going to withdraw so hard. And my second thought was, it's over. Like, I'm going to jail. The guy walked up and the cop, and I'll never forget his face. I said, he goes, you know why I pulled you over? I said, yeah, the car's stolen. I don't have a license and I'm on my way to pick up heroin. I need to go to jail. And he was like, what the hell? But I was ready, man. It was my sign. It was the universe stepping in and being like, this kid's not going to stop and he's going to die. I was convinced I wouldn't make it to 30 at that point. And so I went to jail and I had the most vicious withdrawals my whole entire life. I laid on that cement and just in my own vomit. I remember that it just went through my head. This is the last time you have to do this if you want to. This is the last time you have to do this. And I made it through. If you want to. And I made it through. And they released me 30 days later. Charges were dropped. It was a weird situation. It was a family member that stole it from. And it's the middle of winter in Utah. It's December 23rd and it's snowing. And my mom came and picked me up and she said, but you can't come here. So she dropped me off at a recovery meeting, like an AA meeting. And I went to that AA meeting and after it was done, everyone cleared out, but the guy who was locking the door. And I'm standing out there with a garbage bag because that's all I had to my name was this belonging in a black garbage bag, like that you would use to put leaves in.
That's what they left you around my shoulder. I mean, that's what you left jail with?
Yeah, that's all I had. A couple pairs of shoes, a couple toilet, like nothing. I mean, it's just this garbage bag. And like 2 pairs of clothes is it. And this guy said, hey, do you need a ride home? And I said, yeah. And he said, where do you live? And I said, that's the problem. I don't have a home. And that guy's face was like, shit. And this guy said, hey, I'll let you stay on my couch. But if you steal from me, I will fucking kick your ass. I was like, fair enough. This guy let me stay with him, made me go get a job waiting tables. He said, you need to go do something. So I did. And I waited tables and I humbled myself and I took the bus in the middle of winter and I slipped on ice and shit I was never willing to do before. And I really dove into recovery. All the shit they told me at all these expensive rehabs, I finally started doing. I finally started finding all new friends and going to recovery meetings and doing the work. And shortly after, about 4 months later, I ran into a guy who I used to work for at a nutrition coaching place. And he had a brick and mortar place. And that's what gave me the idea. And so he had me come work there. And he gave me a chance. And I'm forever grateful for that guy. And that's really where my journey took off, man. And, today I just celebrated 9 years sober from all mind-altering drugs, alcohol, you name it. People say, are you like sober? And I go, yeah, sober, which sucks sometimes because I have to feel everything. So, and it was, dude, my life is amazing today, but it was one little step at a time. When you got a 505 credit score and you can't get shit and you owe 32 different institutions, money and hospitals, and it feels overwhelming. So if you're starting your fitness journey out there and you're like, shit, I got 80 pounds to lose, I get it. I get how that can feel overwhelming. And like, I had to just take one little chip at a time. And it's the same philosophy I apply to my clients, especially when they have a big weight loss goal. They got 100 pounds to lose or something. Is you can't think about the 100. I couldn't think about having it. Today I have an almost 800 credit score. And that took me 9 years to get paying back money. And one little step at a time, one little step at a time, one little step at a time. And it's been a lot of work. But that's my story, man. And that's why my Instagram tag is the sober bodybuilder. I've made my story very, very public, and for me, it puts a little pressure on me not to fuck it up, but like I said, drugs doesn't discriminate, man. Black, white, rich, poor, fitness, not fitness. It doesn't matter. It doesn't care. And again, like, I come from a suburb of Salt Lake City, Utah, in a good little Mormon family. Like, it wasn't supposed to happen to me. So while it's hard to deploy empathy to drug addicts, like, man, it was just, I believe it was my challenge, and it was my challenge. And I'm so grateful to be here today to share that story. So, in getting back in the fitness industry, when that guy gave me the job, is when shit changed.
Yeah. I was just going to
change.
I was just going to say, the challenge that you had, and by the way, congratulations on the sobriety. I don't know if that's the right thing to say or not, if I'm being honest, but
no, thank you. It is.
Keep on keeping on, man. But I've talked to so many people and been in this industry a very long time. And it's interesting to see that the fitness industry is what brings people back to life. It gives them something positive to focus on, provides structure in their life. It provides them a sense of meaning, of belonging, and of purpose. And so, here we are, where one more time, you just told a very, very compelling story there. That's just crazy, man. I mean, I'm kind of reeling from it. I knew a bit about it, but I didn't know the whole thing. So let's talk about, and I think you drew some parallels there as well with regard to how you bring your experiences and the things that you went through as an addict into the nutrition coaching or fitness coaching business. And maybe you can expand on that a little bit, and kind of some of the similarities you see with somebody that's just struggling, right, to get past their own limitations, right? You mentioned, like, if this is the last time I have to go through this, if I really want to, maybe you can kind of talk about that with regard to what you do now.
I was really ashamed of my story. Once I started getting going, I wasn't ashamed to other people, but my clients, especially like these more affluent ones, I didn't want them to know that I was just like a year sober from being a homeless heroin addict. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't say anything. And then there were so many parallels as they were talking to me on these calls or in person, like that. I was like, oh, I wish I could share. And then finally one day I just did. And the lady said, oh, no kidding. She said, what were you addicted to? And right in that moment, I wanted to lie and just say, oh, I just drank a little too much, because that's much more socially acceptable.
Sure.
And I said, I was a heroin addict. And I was so scared. And she said, oh my God, I would have never guessed. Congratulations. That's amazing. I respect you even more now. And a shift happened where I was like, you know what? That's when I rebranded I was competing at the time. So that's why there's the bodybuilder in there. But, and I got really open about my message. And what happened with that, when I learned to make my message was this cool thing happened is I got this idea to start Key Nutrition. And when I branched off and did it, I knew that I wanted some pillars within my coaching. And it was this 4-legged chair of fitness analogy I talk about, where I realized people were coming to me for the physical health. But if the emotional, mental, spiritual, these other legs are really unsturdy and unbalanced, it is going to come back and affect, the physical. And maybe, in the spiritual part, people really struggle with, because I'm not talking about God, like even like a walk out and like a hike, a walk out in nature, like
a connection.
These things that yes, exactly. And so, man, because of what I went through, I was like, you know what? I might not be a therapist. I might be this, but I've been through some life. And so we can talk about this. Like, let's start setting goals in these other areas too. And when I started doing that, I saw that when all of a sudden I'm putting meditation in someone's habit goals, all of a sudden their food logs started to get better. Like, all this shit just started happening. And so I definitely have taken my experience, and it took me few years to kind of finally feel like, okay, like I'm qualified to kind of do this. And so it's really molded my message, which has been really cool. I mean, we all go through shit for a reason. And I realized, for me, I'm so open about it because hopefully it can give somebody else some hope, whether they're using, or a brother or sister or husband, or but also because it's become my message. Like, we got to make sure all areas of health are in check and intact. And so it has definitely been a catalyst to expand my coaching and not only help clients get better results and, more importantly, feel better about themselves, but honestly give me as a coach more fulfillment,
right?
To talk about like the real shit. So
yeah, it's not all macros and calories and so forth at the end of the day. Those mental, emotional, psychological, emotional, spiritual pieces can be the single limiter between, feeling fulfilled or getting to a result or not. I think there's another layer to this too, and I've seen within your team you have people that have had similar experiences in life, and so the services that you guys are providing as a team, I imagine you can talk about those as a group, and there's probably some camaraderie there just beyond being on a team, but also being able to understand where each other is and then help one another use those experiences to help those clients down the road. So I wonder, who are your clients now? Well, who's Key Nutrition really seeing as a population? Who comes to see you guys?
I'd say 70% of our clientele is female. Again, it wasn't designed that way, but we definitely, and listen, there was parts, and this is how business works, where early on, there was a portion of our business that was more focused on the competitor side. Mm-hmm. And I still have one coach, Justin. He's a great coach. He was out there in It's Your Certification, and he's kind of our only prep coach. If someone comes and needs a prep, like, that's the guy. Because I realized it went against really what my message was, right? Because a show prep basically says, hey, negate all that shit. I don't care how you feel emotion. Right. Take your emotions to somebody else.
They don't matter.
I don't care how you feel mentally. Right. You need to do this. It's grit. There's no grace involved in a show prep. And so it's kind of how it's turned out. And as cheesy as it sounds, I mean, we have clients all over the board. Like, I don't want to say, well, we help everybody, but
I don't think that's cheesy at all, man.
Sustainable approach. Yeah.
I don't think that's cheesy at all.
That's just kind of where we're at. And really the only reason, I think, we don't necessarily, our marketing message isn't to men. I love working with men. But a lot of them don't want to talk about the other stuff. They're kind of like, leave me alone, dude. Just give me my training and nutrition, which I'll do. But I feel like they're missing out on a big part of this. So, and yeah, the brick and mortar has been interesting because we started that way. And when COVID hit, what happened was I realized we had to switch a lot. And we still had out-of-state clients, but we were probably 65, 70% local people would come in. And they'd come in because, we had this like family atmosphere here, and my sister was working the front desk and she got to know them all. And then we would do like the InBody scan and the inches. And, but even my old business coach, Jason, was like, dude, I don't think you need to have this. I'm like, no, but it creates inside the community here locally in the Valley.
It's a community within the community.
It's been a really cool thing. When COVID hit, I realized, and I realized we had to switch all virtual, right? And I realized, okay, this actually still works. Yeah, we can't. The only, there's some different things about it, but all of a sudden, we started attracting more and more out-of-state people because we just said, hey, we're all like, we do this over Zoom or online check-ins, and so now, man, we're probably 65% virtual and out of state and 35% in person, but it's been really cool.
Yeah. So there's definitely a shift there. I wonder if you've noticed, the team has noticed, with kind of a shift in where your business is coming from, people's focuses or challenges within their dietary success or with their dietary challenges. Have those changed at all, or is it just the same stuff? Just
you mean our
different
approach?
Day? No, I mean, not necessarily. Well, I think your approach may change or shift based on the answer to. No, the question is more about, like, for your clients, are they basically struggling, challenged, and looking to achieve the same things, or have you noticed any shifts since you brought up COVID? I mean, have things changed there? Do people think about it differently? Are they as committed? Are they looking for different goals? Are they more aware of certain things versus others since maybe pre-COVID?
I do think, especially early on, maybe that's weaning a little now. We're even into like early last year, where people started to be like, maybe I need to take more care of my health. Maybe it's just not about weight loss. Like I want to be healthy. Like I don't want to already be struggling to suck wind. And then there's this virus that could attack like your respiratory system, and so I think there were some shifts there. And, but overall, I'm not sure. We really try to, I mean, we're so much, I sell the least unsexy message because it's the shit that works. Yeah. It's, it's a calorie deficit, it's consistency, it's patience, it's enjoying the process, it's noticing the other wins in your mindset and how you're thinking about food. And even, your appetite cues start to change. You notice even when you're not tracking your macros, you're eating less at a restaurant because you've really trained your body to do that in your mind. Like, those are the shit, but none of this is sexy because it all takes a lot of time. And people don't want that. And I'm not, as a company, we really try to strive to be like, hey, listen, you might be able to go to another coach that will do this quicker for you if you can adhere, but we're going to do this the right way. And we're going to understand metabolism. We're going to understand that, sure, I can get you shredded, because we used to do 12-week programs and we would shred these people down in 12 weeks. And I'd be so pumped about my before and afters of clients. I would post them all over my social. And then these people would come back to me 6 months later and gained all the weight back plus more.
Because you didn't teach them anything.
And we were destroying their metabolisms by dieting them so hard. And so less of a focus on that and more about how can we make this a lifestyle change? Like, how can we get you to like start doing, like, these habits take time. They're not going to happen in 12 weeks. I tell people, like, you drive into the forest for 10 years with certain behaviors, habits, weight gain. And the audacity of these people is that you think you're going to be out in 12 weeks. Like, fuck off. No, you're not. Like, if you gave me 1 year, you will be out of the forest and on your way in the new terrain. So 5 years to get into the spot you were in. Give me 1 year to get out. I think it's a fair trade-off.
It's reasonable.
People have unrealistic expectations that they should be. Well, my friend did it in like 4 months. I'm like, so you've been gaining weight, eating like a shithead, having really shitty habits with your sleep, stress management, water intake, you name it, alcohol. And you think you're going to shift all of that in 4 months. And you've been doing this for 10 years. Not going to happen. So I guess my message is be patient. Like, this is a long game. There's nobody at the end of this with a first place trophy for you for who lost weight the fastest, because there is no finish line. That's the punchline. There is none.
The reality of it is too, I mean, you mentioned it's not a very sexy message and it does take time. So what you have is a coach who really is kind of just preaching the fundamentals constantly. And for a coach, that can be it can get a little mundane sometimes. I mean, again, we're not employing all these sexy tricks and methodologies to. We're twisting dials, we're toggling switches, we're doing things, but it isn't sexy, and that can wear on you as a coach even sometimes. So I wonder if we could get into this character I've seen you play, Sheena, and how that was inspired and where Sheena fits into the picture.
This little alter ego, this character it created, and really Sheena was formed in the thick of quarantine, right when COVID hit. I had hired a friend of mine to help me with some content because I was like, okay, we're making good money, but I don't have much influence on social. And I knew I needed some more for a couple of reasons. And so I hired my friend Jordan Syatt, and he was helping me with some content. He said, do you do any accents well? And I did a couple for him. I won't do them for you because I don't want to hurt your ears. He laughed so hard. He goes, that's the worst shit I've ever heard. So no, you can't. And he said, do you do a girl well? And I did my little Sheena voice like this. And he was like, oh my God, you kind of do. And he was like, dude, throw on a wig and do it. It'll be hilarious because you're a big jack tatted dude. And I said, nah. And then I was like, fuck it. I ordered a wig and I threw one on. I did this little video and I posted it. And
wildly popular. Yeah, wildly popular, man.
It's become, I mean, to the point that event I spoke at with 200 coaches a couple weeks ago. Yep. The guy said it'd be hilarious if you came out as Sheena. I thought he was kidding until I saw the advertisements going around. So I performed for 10 minutes as Sheena in leggings. And,
that's awesome.
And you know what? I get some heat from people, but what it was just a funny, like, and so many people have commented like, oh my gosh, I'm Sheena. And they're laughing at themselves because it's
satire.
It's satire. The irony in it is just like,
But by the way, it's true. Like, as with any irony or satire, like it's all very real stuff that happens probably in your office or in your building or with your clients on a daily daily, weekly basis. And if you're offended by that as a potential client or whatever else, well, I don't know what to tell you, because you're probably going to be that person at some point. I think she's fucking great, man. I mean,
thanks, man.
Yeah, I mean, I watched a few of them and I just went, oh my God, I heard that one like 3 days ago.
It's all these stupid excuses that, and what was funny was I got some heat from people about, why am I picking on just the females? Some of them were joking, some of them were serious, but whatever. And so I created a character. I've only done him twice, but called Marty the Meathead, who's essentially making fun of me. I mean, I'm not like that anymore, but I was for years. The guy with the weight belt and the, when I was doing bicep curls and just the gym douchebag with the stringer tee on. And again, satire, because it's so true. Like, it's just like, and I try to give some infotainment, meaning I'm trying to be informative while being entertaining. And I don't know if Sheena's very informative, but it definitely lets people know just how fucking stupid they sound when they use these excuses, or I only drank this many times. Right. I should be dropping. And it's like,
it's not the bottle of wine I had on Wednesday night that
it was one. Give me a break. That's all. I'm like, well, let's add up those calories. So it's it's funny. It's turned into a beast of its own. A gal came up to me at the gym and she's walking straight towards me and I could see. So I took off my headphones and she goes, "Oh my God, you're Sheena." And then she says with this cut, she goes, "Your other stuff's okay, but we love Sheena. Do more Sheena." Walks away. Basically, I was like, she basically said all my other actual informative content is shit, but Sheena's her favorite. But and I kind of just laughed and I said, "Wow, like this is really turning into something." So just check it out if you haven't.
I guarantee you get a laugh out of it. And if you don't, lighten up. That's what I'd say. But maybe you could talk just a little bit about kind of in your expertise, as long as you've been in this now and you have been wildly successful out there, kind of what you see the state of the union is here with the nutrition coaching business as we know it now, because it's evolved. I mean, if we went back 10 years and talked about nutrition coaching, what it was templates on paper and, text messages or adjustments to caloric prescription or macros. It's a different deal now, and you have some people that have really embraced it and some people are maybe still doing the show prep and stuff. But maybe you could kind of give us your take on where we're at as an industry.
I think more and more people are starting to be open-minded to the fact that this is going to take a long time and they would rather do this right. I don't remember 9 years ago us talking about things like metabolic adaptation, which is essentially the metabolism kind of down-regulating in the company of too little of food or too much exercise or both. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember ever talking about this. That's why I was just getting people shredded. And I was like, why can't they sustain it? So I think there's so much more awareness, and hormones the last 5 years, I think, has taken off of really these factors on how to maybe naturally, get hormones in check or bioidentical hormones. Mm-hmm. And so I'm seeing more, I think for me, I've seen more wellness starting to come and less about just the aesthetics. And I think that's a really cool shift that's happening. I think people are understanding that, templated meal plans, don't work long-term for obvious reasons. Mm-hmm. So most people aren't doing those now. And people realize the flexibility of the tracking macros and, and even stuff like mindful eating is really big now. And even carnivore. If you would have talked to me a year and a half ago, I'd have been like, this fucking shit's out of control. But everyone's doing, no one's really talking about carnivore because it went through its phase. We're like, this is awful. Right. And there's only certain few people, I have a buddy who has rheumatoid arthritis. Carnivore really helps that.
It's good for him. Right.
But the vast majority of people after they went through this crazy stint were like, this is awful.
It's not
and
sustainable.
Even you see the keto craze has died down a lot. Right. And I don't have any beef against keto. It just was, it was a lot when there was, you keto this, keto that, keto this for that couple of years. And so overall, I think the nutrition space is heading in a better direction each and every year. And I think there's more qualified coaches coming out that understand this game and understand that there's so much more to it than just putting someone on a calorie deficit and saying, see you later. So I think we're in good hands.
Yeah, I think that's, if I had to compare it, it's kind of 5 years behind the fitness industry. Because if I went back 10 years in fitness, it was kind of crazy workouts and how hard can you push yourself, and people just going nuts and trying to post PRs on everything. And it has come full circle to be more wellness, and I think it's natural that the nutrition piece would keep up.
Yeah.
Or meet the power curve there. Any interesting things you're employing in your business right now that have been ultra successful with this? That have been ultra successful for you? Is there any tricks, any hacks, anything for the nutrition business owner or for the nutrition coach, the aspiring nutrition coach or entrepreneur out there?
Remain open-minded. I know as a business owner, I mean, I had to suck ass at a lot of things, and I still suck at some things today and fail. And I know those are how I learn. And so I made so many mistakes early on. And you know, I think viewing, you know, learning to fall in love with those L's, like looking at those losses as learning opportunities, man, has been, I'm like, okay, good. I screwed up. Let's see what I did wrong. Let's see how we can do that better. Okay. And at the end of the day, when you own a company, and I got, you know, 10 coaches that work for me, and, you know, half, and it's not big by any means, but at the end of the day, it's my fault if something goes wrong. Like, I really embrace that, not in like a martyr way.
Right.
Maybe I didn't train them well enough, so they did this wrong. Maybe it's not directly my fault, but at the end of the day, it's my fault. And I take that ownership. That's what entrepreneurship is saying, hey, like, I don't have a boss. I'm my boss. So if something goes wrong, I got to point the finger at me too. What can I do better? And I think a lot of people lack that accountability, and also just as a coach out there, man, like building relationships with these people, having a connection-based model where you get to know these people, and you care for them. Like, you care. You know, the cheesy saying of like, people don't care how much you know till you know you care. Mm-hmm. It's very true. And that's how we operate. So, stay open-minded, continue to further your education. Don't get too dogmatic in one strategy, and embrace the journey, man. It's fun.
Yeah. I think that's the thing, is you got to be in it long enough to get enough of those L's to learn from those L's. So
yes.
You know, don't expect it to happen overnight, just because if you're doing that, then you're no better than your client that took 10 years to get to where they're at and wants it all done in a couple of months or 12 weeks. Brad, I really appreciate having you on, and I know people definitely would want to hear more about what you're doing and how you're doing it. I'm really in love with your social content, because it really just speaks to the things I think people need to be reminded of on a daily basis, both as a coach. Thanks, both as a coach and as a client. So if people want to find out a little bit more about you, a little bit more about Key Nutrition, your team, Sheena, all that stuff, where do they go?
I'm the most active on Instagram. It's at the Sober Bodybuilder, all one word. My podcast is the Key Nutrition Podcast on all platforms. Our website, nutrition.com. I'm currently not taking new clients, but I got great assistant coaches and then other team member coaches that are. You can hop on my waiting list if you're interested. But the podcast, social media, Facebook at Brad Jenson, and I'm on TikTok, but not enough for you to go look. So,
all right, buddy. Again, Brad, I know you're a busy man. Thanks for all your time and wisdom today. And next time I'm in Utah, I'll come by, knock on the door, say what's up.